CFR Network, CFR News, good night, good day, shalom, niha, wassalam, all of the universal greetings. Trust everybody is well. And most importantly, thank yourself for tuning in to this here broadcast. Returning guests, Micah Dank, gracing the broadcast again with some more interesting information regarding the Bible. We're going to go into more detail, specifically, as we touched on in the first podcast, the Book of Enoch. Welcome to the broadcast, Micah. How are we doing, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Fighting the good fight continuously. Weather's getting a little bit better. We had like a couple of days of some real nice weather last week, and now it's gone to pot and it's gone cold again. But you know, we're kind of there. We're kind of getting there.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm in New York. We're still locked down, and it's still cold.
Did you get the that Arctic blast that was hitting the south? Did that actually make its way up to New York?
No, I mean, it snowed and it was cold, but we're used to that.
Yeah, of course. So nothing new under the sun. Same shit, different toilet, as they say.
Exactly.
Okay, so Micah, where do you want to start? Reference the
do you want? I mean, you told me that the last podcast was received incredibly well.
Yes,
100%. when we went into all that. So am I to assume from the beginning that we understand the zodiac and everything, or should I go through the 12 signs one more time?
Let's do it. Go through the 12 signs just for any new listeners who haven't potentially listened to part one. Yeah, if you do a recap, and then we can jump straight into the Book of Enoch.
Okay. All right. So here are the 12 signs. The first sign is always Aries. That's what starts the zodiac. It's the new year. It's the spring. But I start the zodiac in Aquarius because that's kind of like January, give or take. I mean, the signs don't actually technically match up directly with the months. They don't. But I just like to start with Aquarius. So the sign of Aquarius is the man holding the water pitcher. Then the next sign is Pisces, which is the sign of two fish in the water.
Micah.
Yeah.
One thing you say the man holding the pitcher.
The pitcher of water, yes.
Yeah. A lot of people say it's a woman holding the pitcher, or is this a different zodiac?
It's a man. Okay. The zodiac sign for woman is Virgo with the wheat stalk.
Cool, no problem.
Then Pisces is the sign of the two fish in the water. That's why Jesus fed the masses with two fish, because it's a metaphor for the sun in Pisces. Then Aries is the ram. And in Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, 12-hour night. And it's also the Passover, or the passing over of the sun over the equator, astrologically. On Earth, you have the Passover, which is the Jewish celebration of God passing over and judging all the Egyptians' firstborn. And but astrotheologically, it's the passing over of the sun on the equator. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and called the resurrection of God's son. So it's two separate meanings, but it's the same meaning if you think about it as a metaphor. It's why the Jews smear the lamb's blood on the door. It's because it was to protect them from God, who was going to smite all the Egyptians
and the death
firstborn. Yep. And basically, it's also the Jews smear the lamb's blood. It's why the Jews blow the ram's horn. It's why during Passover, the Jews have the lamb bone on the plate. It's called the shank bone. And they blow the ram's horn because they're the people of Aries. Then Taurus is the bull. And when you look at the sky and you see Taurus, right, you know that you have to put the plow on the bull so that you could plant the seeds so that you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. Then Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. Then Cancer is the crab. It's the sideways moving creature. See, what happens is, starting on December 25th, the sun rises a degree a day. And every single day it rises a degree higher. And it does this until it hits June 21st, where it's at its height. It's the longest day of the year. June 21st. Then for 3 days, the sun stays at that height. And then it drops down a degree on June 25th. And then it continues to drop down a degree every single day until it hits December 21st, which is the winter solstice. It's when the sun is dead. It's when the sun's at its lowest height. So the ancients used to say the sun is dead. And then it's just like the 3 days in June, it has 3 days where it stays at that height in December, which is why God's son was dead for 3 days. And then comes back to life December 25th, which is the birth of Dionysus, Osiris. It's the birth of Horus. It's the birth of Jesus. Take your pick. That's why
Tammuz.
that's why it's that particular, exactly, which is also a month in the Hebrew calendar, by the way, which is exactly why they have that. So that's Cancer. And the reason it's a crab is because it moves sideways, just like the sun technically moves sideways from June 21st to June 24th. Then Leo is the ruling planet of the sun. I'm sorry, the sun is the ruling planet of Leo. And Leo is considered the king. It's the lion. It's the king of the jungle. Then Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. And remember when we said that you plant in Taurus, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. Then Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance. It's known as the just one. And the reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox, and begins its descent into winter, which is cold and death. The Jews always celebrate their new year around the fall equinox. And because Libra represents the judge or the judgment, that's why the Jews have 8 days after Rosh Hashanah, their new year, they have something called Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. It's the day of judgment. It's the day that God judges them. They fast all day, and then God is going to either put them in the book of life for another year, or he's not. So that's what they pray for. Libra is also known as wine season, which is when you plant the grapes in Taurus, you end up pressing them in Libra. Then Scorpio is known as the scorpion, and he is known as the betrayer. And the reason behind that is because the ancients knew that when a scorpion would bite you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death. That's where that comes from. And it's why Jesus, who was represented by the sun, was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. So the sun is judged in Libra and betrayed in Scorpio. Finally, in Sagittarius, which is the horse with the bow and the arrow and the man, this is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun. And then we went over in Sagittarius how December 21st is in Sagittarius, and the sun dies, and then it's dead for 3 days, and then it comes back to life in Capricorn. Why? Because it climbs a degree a day. It starts the climb in Capricorn. And just like the goat climbs the mountain, in real life, Capricorn is the goat that starts the sun's climb along the mountain. Metaphorically, you see.
What's the symbology behind the Sagittarius? Because that's Archer or the mythological.
It's a horse. It's a man with a horse. That's where the centaur comes from, because they just combine the two. That's where the mythology of the centaur comes from. And what it is it's a man on a horse with a bow and arrow.
Simply as that.
Yep, it's that simple.
Sometimes the simplest things are there in plain sight.
Correct. Now I've given you the 12 signs and I've told you what to look for. So if I said wine, what sign do you know you're talking about?
Woman.
No, wine. Wine is Libra because the wine, that's when you press the grapes. That's wine
Pressing
season.
grapes. Yes.
The woman with the wheat stalk is Virgo. So when you mention bread or yeast or woman, you're talking about Virgo. Okay. When you're talking about the bull, you know that's Taurus, right?
Yes.
Okay. So do you have any questions before we start this?
What is the symbology, or what's the reasoning? This might be out of your remit, but the major cities within Europe and across the world have that bull symbology in their major centers of power. What are they drawing from that, or what's the
I'll give you an example for. I'll give you New York's stock exchange, for example. You know, you have the giant bull, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's called a bull market or a bear market, correct?
Yes.
Well, a bull, the reason it's called a bull market is because it's going up. Because when a bull gores you, it puts its head down and then it raises its
Raises up.
horns up.
Yes.
That's why. A bear, when it attacks you, it palms down. That's why a bear market's going down. Okay. But just like the sun in Taurus, okay, the sun is continuing to rise. That's why it goes up. Okay. And the bear, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, that you've heard of before, okay, those are the great bear and the little bear,
Yes.
that goes down. So it's all astrology. So the bull goes back to ancient Egyptian worship because the Egyptians were the people of Taurus. You can look at the hieroglyphs and you can see countless images of a bull with its horns, with the sun in between the horns. They're obviously telling you, it's blatant that they're telling you that they used to worship the sun in Taurus. An interesting story is Moses was for the Jewish people, right?
Yes.
Now, let alone the fact that that goes back to the Egyptian Tutmosis, where they took the Old Testament and they created a character named Moses, who comes from Tutmosis. But that aside,
And was
Moses.
Tutmosis, was that also Thoth or Thos?
No, Thoth was Hermes.
Okay.
Hermes Trismegistus.
Mm-hmm.
But you have you have Moses. He climbs Mount Sinai, and Sinai, by the way, the Jews are moon worshippers. So Sinai is a combination of two words: sin, S-I-N, which means moon god, and A-I in Hebrew, which means mountain. So it's the mountain of the moon god. So they'd pray to it because what happens is, to this day, the Jews have a lunar calendar.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is they would pray to this mountain, and then basically the moon would come up from behind it at night. So that's where they thought it came from. Okay, so Moses, who's a Jew, and they're the people of Aries, just escaped the Egyptian people of Taurus. Now Moses climbs. I'm
Micah,
sorry.
Technically, Moses would have been Hebrew, not a Jew at this point, right?
Right.
Because it wasn't until Israel, Jacob, his name was changed to Israel, then was the 12 tribes, and that's when we had the tribe of Judah,
right. I was just saying that he was leading the basically what you consider the Jewish population.
Yes. Okay.
That's what I meant. I didn't mean he literally was. He was an Egyptian that was sent down the river.
Mm.
Okay, so he wasn't to begin with, but he's leading the Jewish people, and he goes to Mount Sinai, and he takes the 10 Commandments, and he comes down. And do you remember what he sees people worshiping?
The calf, Moloch.
The golden calf. Exactly. Now I'm going to give you two plausible scenarios. One, people actually believe that the Jews had all this gold. They found welding equipment, and they built a giant statue in the middle of the desert for walking for 40 years. Okay, so is that more likely? Or is it more likely that the golden calf is a metaphor for them worshiping the sun in Taurus? They were worshiping the wrong time period. They're now in the age of Aries. They're the people of Aries. So Moses got mad at that, and he smashed the tablets, making him the first lawbreaker. That's where breaking the law comes from. And he basically got them to stop doing that. Which is more likely?
Wasn't that deity also a Canaanite deity as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, the bull has been around. The bull has definitely been around.
So, okay, what was you going to ask me? Sorry.
No. I was wondering if you knew that. That's all.
Yes. Just to give some contextuality to people who are not fully aware of the Book of Enoch, which is not in the canonized version of the.
Well, it is in the Ethiopian Bible.
And the 1611 King James Bible. All of the books, the lost books or the non-canonized books, will be in there.
I think they were all removed in 1684, right?
Yes, indeed. After one of the many councils took place, and said, "Oh, wait a minute. We can't have all of these books in here because that's going to give too much contextuality in regards to these manuscripts, and give people a bit more power of discernment, should we say?"
Right, exactly.
So Enoch was the great grandfather of Noah. who, as most people will know, was
Yes, that's exactly who he was. Yes.
who created the ship, the large ark, and everyone was calling him crazy, etc. And he survived the flood with his wife and his three sons, Ham, Japheth, and Shem, along with their wives as well, which most people don't really think about. Well, if there was four men and one woman, how did they repopulate the earth? They had wives on the on the boats. But
Right.
again, a bit more detail. Aramaic and Hebrew was the text was initially written in, and then later converted or translated, I should say, into Greek, Latin, Bulgar, etc., and into the modern day English that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
So with that foundation, take it away, Micah.
Okay. So my contention is that the Book of Enoch, where last time I went over the Bible with its current books in it, and my contention was that all the astrology and astrotheology was hidden and not openly talked about. You had to decode it.
Yes.
Whereas in the Book of Enoch, it's blatantly there, and that's why I think it was removed.
And so much more in regards to the fallen ones, as people are really running with the Nephilim. They're forgetting about the Rephaim as well. There's a lot of information in that. Genetic modification, transhumanism is within that. Demons, angels. There's a lot of stuff contained within the Book of Enoch.
Right. So if we start in chapter 2 in the Book of Enoch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you these passages that have astrotheology in it, and I'm going to describe it to you. So in chapter 2:1 in the Book of Enoch, and if anybody has the Book of Enoch and they want to follow along, it says, "Observe ye everything that takes place in the heaven, how they do not change their orbits, and the luminaries which are in the heaven, how they all rise and set in order, each in its season, and transgress not against their appointed order." That's talking about the zodiac. All the stars are where they're supposed to be.
Yep.
They will always be there. They will never not be there. Right?
Of course.
And then if you go up to chapter 8:2, Simjaza, it says this. Oh, are you looking it up yourself?
Yes.
All right, open up to chapter 8:2.
Okay.
Simjaza taught enchantments. Amaros, the resolving of enchantments. Barakiel taught astrology.
Yes.
Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Sariel, the course of the moon. Notice that all of them end in L. It's a common ending. Michael, Raphael, Rachel, Michelle. I can go on. El was the name of God. In the Egyptian times, the gods were Isis, Ra, and El. And from that together, you get Israel.
Elohim
Elohim, which are the planets, which are the planets that they could see.
Pluralize. Again, a lot of people utilize that verbiage and use it in the singular format, but as we know, it's Elohim, which is a pluralized word. So yes, and in regards to the L on the back of every name, as you say, it does tie up. It does definitely tie up. What was the? Can you go into more detail about the knowledge of the clouds? What does that mean?
See, that's up for debate, to be honest with you. When I hear the knowledge of the clouds, I'm just thinking of just the different types of clouds. I'm just talking about, because you have to remember too, is that when you look through the sky, back in the day, there was no light pollution. There was no industrial revolution. There was no industrial pollution. So you could see everything clearly.
Crystal
clear. He's talking about how to know what was behind it, behind the clouds, when the clouds were out, because that would be the only thing that obstructed the view.
Okay.
So if we go to chapter 14:11.
Yeah.
Its ceiling was like the path of the stars and the lightnings, and between them was a fiery cherubim, and the heaven was clear as water. This
Micah,
could mean this, yeah.
cherubim. Let's break that one down. What is a cherubim?
That is really up for debate. I've heard many different things about that, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you take it as,
It.
but I think it's just like a chariot kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could make it an inanimate object. Some people, as you say that it's a form of like a lesser angel of sorts.
Right. Okay. Right. I've heard that before too, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Continue. And in the heavens,
the heavens was clear as water, and and when they're saying that, okay, this could mean that the sign Aquarius or Pisces, as they are the signs that have water in them. Another thing that gives credence to it is 1413. And I entered that house. It was hot as fire and cold as ice. The sun had entered either Aquarius and Pisces, one of the two, as those are the winter months. The sun is both hot and in the middle of a winter, so it's both hot and ice.
Right.
If we move to 1415, and I beheld a vision, and lo, there was a second house greater than the former, and the entire portal stood open before me, and it was built of flames and fire. And in every respect, it so excelled in splendor and magnificence, an extent that I cannot describe to you its splendor and its extent. And its floor was of fire, and above it were lightnings and the path of the stars.
Yeah.
And its ceilings were also flaming fire. And I looked and saw therein a lofty throne. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof as the shining sun. The sun is in its kingdom, it's in Leo. And the reason the sun is in its kingdom in Leo is because the sun is the ruling planet of Leo, which is the dead of summer. The sun is the ruling planet of Leo, so that's its home. Also, before, we now know they were talking about Aquarius and Pisces because Leo and Aquarius are opposing signs.
Mm-hmm.
And the two most important signs when referencing to a sign are its neighboring sign and its cross sign.
Some may attribute or contribute that some of that verse and say that it's describing UFOs.
I don't think I've ever heard that one.
I've heard it, and I thought I can kind of understand what you're saying, but if you look at the context of what's being said, you can't come up with a unidentified flying object or an angel or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Possibly. I mean, it's possible to take it that way. The way I'm reading it, though, is just through astrology.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you'd read it through astrologically. If I go to 17:2, and they brought me to the place of darkness, and to a mountain, the point of whose summit reached to heaven. They're talking about darkness, which is correlated to winter. So it's one of the winter months. And I saw the place of the luminaries and the treasuries of the stars and of the thunder, and in the uttermost depths, where were a fiery bow and arrow and their quiver. So the man with his arrow and quiver is Sagittarius. So that's how you know it's the winter, and it's Sagittarius. That's December. So moving along the zodiac, it's in progression. So what's next? That's 17:4. And they took me to the living waters and to the fire of the west. Aquarius and Pisces are on the west of the zodiac. They're on the left side. Therefore, the west. The sun is now back to the water sign. So they were in Sagittarius, and then they moved, skipped over Capricorn, and now they're in Aquarius and Pisces. You see how that works? 18:2, and I saw the cornerstone of the earth. I saw the four winds, which bear the earth and the firmament of heaven. The four winds are the cross that the entire zodiac makes, okay? The solstices and the equinox form a perfect cross through the zodiac, okay, which is the cross of God's son that he lives and dies on. And I saw the winds stretch out the vaults of heaven. I saw the winds of heaven which turn and bring the circumference of the sun and all their stars to their setting. So that's openly talking about astrology. I don't even need to decode that. 1813, I saw the 7 stars like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, the 7 stars are also known as the 7 sisters of the Pleiades constellation. That's what they're called. They're called the 7 sisters. So when they mention 7 stars, okay, that's what they're talking about. And then in 21:3, again, and there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains and burning with fire. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about they saw the Pleiades. 46:1. And then I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white like wool. That's sheep, Aries, because that's where the wool comes from. And with him was another being whose countenance had the appearance of a man. Okay. 46:3. This is the Son of Man who hath righteousness. That's Aquarius. Aquarius is the man sign. He's the man holding the water pitcher. That's why Jesus is known as the Son of Man, because he's the man. 48:1. And in that place I saw the fountain of righteousness. That's Aquarius, the fountain, the man with the water pitcher. It's a fountain. And all the thirsty drank of them, and they were filled with wisdom. And at that hour, the Son of Man was named. Again, it mentions the Son of Man. That's Aquarius. 49:1. For wisdom is poured out like water. Poured out like water. That's Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher pouring it out. And he shall judge all the secret things. I told you before, Libra is the scales of justice. It's the judge.
And going back to the Cometian / Egyptian times, it would have been the Mayat would have been that equivalent, wouldn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
That's justice, reciprocity, and I can't remember all of the things that go along with that, but I'm sure that's their version, just like the scarab beetle would be the equivalent to the crab.
Exactly, because in the ancient times, the scarab was the crab. You actually get the word crab from scarab.
I can see it, yes.
The zodiac has changed slightly since the Egyptian time. The crab used to be the scarab, and Leo used to be the Sphinx. So that's how it's changed over time. If I go into 51:4, and in those days shall the mountains leap like rams. Well, ram is Aries. And the hills also shall skip like lambs. Once again, that's Aries. Satisfied with milk.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about milk, you're talking about the Milky Way galaxy. You see?
Yeah. And the faces of all the angels in the heaven shall be lightened up with joy. So what's that reference? Is that the luminaries we're talking about? Angels?
The luminaries are, I've heard them be compared to angels, but I believe they're just lights. They're just the light from the stars. Okay. They're illuminating.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to 50, I'm sorry, go on.
Hence the term joy.
Where does that come from?
Shall be lighted up with joy. So what you're saying is that the light being expressed from that star is the joy.
Yes. These are metaphors. You have to understand that. These are all just metaphors. 56:5. That they may break forth as lions from their lairs. That's Leo, the lion. And as hungry wolves among their flocks. Well, the wolf is the constellation Lupus, which means wolf in Latin. 56:7. But the city of my righteous shall be a hindrance to their horses. That's Sagittarius.
Yes.
In those days, this is 59:1. In those days, mine eyes saw the secrets of the lightings and of the lights and the judgments they execute. That's Libra, the judge. Then 60.7. And on the day were 2 monsters parted, a female monster named Leviathan, to dwell in the abysses of the ocean over the fountains of water. Talking about Pisces, the 2 fish in the water, the water monster. And over the fountains of water, that's Aquarius, the fountain of water. 65:6. They have learnt all the secrets of the angels and all the violence of the Satans. There's multiple Satan. Satan in Hebrew actually just means adversary. That's all it
Adversary.
means.
Yes.
It doesn't mean devil. Hashatan in Hebrew.
Mhm.
It just means adversary.
Yes.
So technically, like if you're watching a UFC fight, those two fighters are just Satan. That's all they are.
Did you watch
They're
it
just
last night,
adversaries.
Micah?
What's up?
Did you catch the 259 last night?
I did not.
UFC? Yeah, okay, you missed it. It was an excellent event, but continue, sir.
Sure. No problem. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So the
Question.
yeah.
Question for you. Leviathan, outside of the subject matter we're talking now, what is your understanding of what Leviathan is? Was because that's been
It's a
described
fish
as
god. It's a fish god. It's
like
a fish
Dogon.
god. Like Dogon. No, Dagon.
Dagon, even
Like-
that's it.
Like Dagon, like Mithra. It's a fish god. If you look at the Pope's mitre, what the Pope wears, that hat
Yes.
that the Pope wears, okay? If you take it off and you turn it sideways, it looks like a fish head.
Exactly.
And it's done on purpose because
Yes.
they borrowed from the previous religions.
Well,
Mhm.
unfortunately, that Christianity has taken and borrowed so much from many different religions and cultures from the past too, and based upon what's been put out, the reason for that was to make it so the quote unquote heathen / pagans could assimilate into Christianity by borrowing their customs and symbols and sigils, etc.
Right. Absolutely.
It's
So if I continue 69:20, and through the oath the sun and the moon complete their course, and deviate not from their ordinances from eternity to eternity, and through the oath of the stars complete their course, and he calls them by their names, and they answer him from eternity to eternity. And in the manner of spirits of the water and of the winds and of all the zephyrs and their path and all the quarters of the winds. So you're talking about the sun and the moon there, and then you're talking about the stars completing their course, the whole thing, the whole zodiac, and the 12 signs, how it goes through the signs. And then he answers them from eternity to eternity. This is God's promise. It's basically the sun. It's going to go through the 12 signs, and it's going to always go through the 12 signs.
that is guaranteed.
Yep.
One thing guaranteed in life is birth and death and the sunrise, and as you say, the precession of the luminaries and the planets.
So now we actually come up, since you brought that up, we come up to the book of the courses of the heavenly luminaries.
Yes. Seraphim, would you what would you what is the metaphor behind that?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not really sure. But if I go into 72:3, this is the book of the courses of the heavenly luminaries. And I saw 6 portals in which the sun rises, and 6 portals in which the sun sets. That's the passage. The sun sits in each sign for 2 hours a day, making 12 signs times 2 is our 24-hour day.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
72:14. On the day becomes longer than the night, and the day becomes double the night, and the day becomes 12 parts, and the night is shortened to become 6 parts.
Yeah.
They're talking about the summer solstice, which is June 21st, the longest day of the year.
Yes.
It's an 18-hour day and a 6-hour night.
It's amazing that this information has been preserved. Obviously, there's been some manipulation to the script, but as it says within the script, there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing at all. So everything that's been described within the text, we can see, and it's been verified, by astrologers and astrology researchers and people who partake in that field. So it's many people do poo-poo the Bible and say, oh, you know, it's stories and it's got no value. But there is value to everything. It just depends on how you can apply it and how you can interpret, especially if it's a text, how you can interpret it and how you can apply it into your life.
Absolutely. If I go to the next passage, which is 72:20, on that day, the day is equalized with the night and becomes of equal length. Well, they're talking about the equinoxes, which is an equal 12-hour day, 12-hour night. 72:26, and on that day, the night becomes longer and amounts to the double of the day. That's the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year.
As it was written, yes, indeed.
We have 82:19, and the sheep pair become pregnant, and all the fruits of the earth are gathered in, and everything that is in the fields and the winepress, these things take place in the day of his dominion. The sheep represents Aries, and its cross sign, very important, is Libra, which is the wine season, hence the winepress method mentioned. Then 87:4, and one said unto me, remain here till thou seest everything that befalls those elephants, camels, and asses, and the stars and the oxen and all of them. The elephant nebula is Cephas. Camelopardalis borders Cephas. Ocellus borealis, or the northern donkey. Bootes, Bootes, is the ox constellation. You see how that is?
I'm not familiar with those constellations. Only two of them that you mentioned I've got any kind of correlation to, but yeah, it does make sense.
Then 89:12, but that bull, Taurus, which was born from him, begat a black wild boar. The Andromeda constellation, or boar, and a white sheep, Aries. 90:31. And thereafter, those three who were clothed in white and had seized me by my hand, who had taken me up before, and the hand of the ram, that's Aries, also seizing hold of me, they took me up and set me down in the midst of those sheep, that's also Aries, before the judgment took place, that's Libra. Those are opposing signs, Aries and Libra. Then 96:5-6. Woe to you who devour the finest wheat, that's Virgo, and drink wine in large bowls, that's Libra. Woe to you who drink water from every fountain, that's Aquarius. It's going in the sun's path order of the zodiac.
Yes.
And then in the appendix, you have 108:15, the last words. And the sinners shall cry aloud and see them resplendent, and they indeed will go where days and seasons are prescribed for them. That's talking about the zodiac and the constellations. And that is the Book of Enoch.
That was an excellent presentation, sir. I think there's you've given a lot of keys here for some additional research. Let me ask you a question. I think this is a repeat of our last conversation. How do you, and as per my previous statements, how do you utilize this information in your life?
Well, I just don't take it as the word of God. You know, it's not literal. It's not literally the word of God. And if it's not the word of God, then all the inconsistencies and all the punishments that everyone sticks by, they shouldn't be real. For example, everybody knows about the passage of homosexuality in Leviticus.
Yes.
Well, if this is just an astrology book, then that's not God written. And if that's not God written or God inspired, then it really doesn't have any purpose in modern day. And I'm shocked at how many people still use it to be bigoted.
Sticking in that book of Leviticus, there's also instructions in regards to dietary laws, which again, if we look at quote unquote modern day science, just does kind of confirm that to stay away from such meats and creatures, etc., is conducive to a healthy physical
Well, I'm not
life.
saying I'm not saying that the Bible has nothing useful if you read it on face value.
Mhm.
Of course it is. Like, I just read you the Book of Enoch, but I didn't read you every passage because not every passage talks about astrology.
Yes.
But as you see, the majority does. So my point is that you could take the good out of the Bible and not be worried that you're doing harm to yourself by not taking the whole Bible literally.
Yes. Understand. It's some people will view the text as the analogy would be when you, not so much these days, but in the olden days of sorts, let's go back 10 years back, when you buy something new like an electrical item, it would come with an instruction manual, right?
Right.
And before you would even attempt to do anything apart from maybe turn the thing on, you'd read through the damn manual, wouldn't you? To make sure you know what goes wrong, what goes right, what the cleaning regime is maybe, or, just to make sure you're going to operate that thing right.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. But now, hold on a second. There's people that don't want you to know that there's astrology in the Bible and in all these Gnostic texts. Incidentally, I've also done this to the book of Matthew. I've gone line by line. I've done this to the book of Revelation, line by line. I'm going to read you a Roman Catholic catechism, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've done 2 episodes with you, and you're a pretty intelligent guy. I can tell just by the way that you're feeding off of my answers and throwing new ones towards me. But if you never knew anything about this, after my presentations, my 2, would you not agree that 100% there's hidden astrology in the Bible?
Oh, there's no doubts. There is no question. It's just that the traditions of man, which I talk about a lot, dictates and shapes the mind to make you not want to question and not to question, and also not to think for yourself, not to critically think. It's written
Right.
down there, but they will
It
say,
literally says in the Bible, doesn't it say in the Bible, lean on God with your lean on God wholeheartedly and trust not your own understanding.
mm-hmm. Yes,
It literally tells you that. It says don't try and think of anything yourself. You can't do that.
it has to. Someone who is a type of person who will question things and who seeks answers will have come to that sort of remit. People who are shut off, and unfortunately there are a lot of people who are shut off, will not accept anything that is outside of what the priest or the pastor has indoctrinated them with.
Let me read you the Roman Catholic Catechism 2116. Okay, because they're the ones that are making sure that you don't follow astrology or learn
100%.
this kind of stuff that I talk about. 2116. All forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future. Consulting horoscopes, astrology, palm reading, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums all conceal a desire for power over time, history, and in the last analysis, other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden powers. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe to God alone. Right there. That's why you can ask a religious person and they'll tell you that astrology is insane.
Okay, let me play righteous advocate. Divinations in regards to palm reading and conjuring of the dead, i.e., speaking to relatives or loved ones who have transitioned into the other dimension or to another realm, depending on your verbiage.
Exactly.
Do you think that's a good thing, or is it or do you think that's a bad thing? Like, what's your
I
stance
think
on?
they're trying to ban you from this hidden wisdom. That's all it is. See, the question is whether or not the Bible is the inspired word of God, or is the word of God? And you should take the Bible 100% literally. And the answer is no. And this astrology, I think, proves it. You know, I went over the 12 signs with you. You know what to look for. Now, when you see wine presses, thorn bushes, things of that nature,
Mhm.
grapes from the thorn bushes, you know that's Libra. When I talk about bread or young women or virgin, you know I'm talking about Libra. When you're talking about pouring water out, you know that's Aquarius. You know what these signs are. They're all metaphors. That's what it is.
And that's why people should study to show themselves approved rather than leaning on someone to dictate to them what is good and what is bad. Have you also looked at like the Book of the Dead, for instance, or one of the old
The Egyptian Book of the Dead, or are you
Yeah.
talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Both actually, Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of the Dead, or the book coming forth by day and night.
I've also looked at the Book of Raziel. Raziel, for those who don't know who Raziel was, he was the angel that came down when Adam and Eve got kicked out of heaven, and he showed them how to live outside of paradise. Okay, he has a book, and I've done the same thing with astrology with it. Every biblical text can be done the same way that I've broken this down. Every biblical text that was removed can be done the same way. That's all these books were. And the 10 Commandments actually come from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, chapter 125. It's called the 12 Negative Confessions. That's where it's lifted from.
12 negatives. What's it? How do they? The verbiage is different though.
It is different. It is very different. It's one of the commandments in the Book of the Dead is I will not take milk from a kid's mouth or something.
Yeah.
And by kid they mean goat.
Goat.
And by goat they mean Capricorn. So it's all there. I mean, astrology is the oldest science. It goes back to the Lascaux caves 40,000 years ago, the caves they found in France. At least that's as far back as I could track it. We've known about the luminaries forever. And it's the oldest science. And if you think about it, it makes sense why it's so important. Is because what at the time that the Bibles were written, they didn't have clocks, smartwatches, or calendars. They needed to know the stars to know when to plant, to know when to harvest. They needed to know when to basically plow. They needed to know when rainy season was coming. They needed to know when the summer was going to be the hottest because they were living in Egypt and Israel and it was going to get hot. They also needed to know when winter was coming. You know, and the interesting thing about this too is because all this took place in the northern hemisphere, the zodiac actually goes backwards in the southern hemisphere because June 21st is actually the coldest day of the year. It's the dead of winter in Australia. But that's why this all takes place in the northern hemispheres, because everything took place in the northern hemisphere.
So can you correlate, as you just highlighted that, which makes perfect sense, and I didn't even think to ask you about that. What is their cosmology for people who are in the southern hemisphere?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. They just do it backwards.
Okay, it's just in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So that's why this is so important, is because that's what kept you alive. Because at the time, if we go back to hunter and gathering stages, we would need to learn the stars all over again. Finding God would be very low on that list. You know, that's a pleasure for those who have time and energy to be safe and out of the food chain, right? That's what you have to do. You have to get out of the food chain. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, and that's why it's so important. And that's why it's encoded in every single book of the Bible. Now, not every passage is that, because it's still a story. I've encoded my book series, you know, but that doesn't mean that every line is encoded. Mm-hmm. I think you could still take the good out of the Bible, leave the bad, and not be worried that God is going to smite you because you're not following it word for word, because it's not. It's an astrology book.
When we do go to the other realm, the other dimension, when we leave this three-dimensional plane, what is your view on what happens next? Obviously,
energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? That's one of the Hermetic principles. That's also one of the first laws of thermodynamics, right? Exactly. In physics.
Yes.
Okay, so energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Mm-hmm. So two things are going to happen, or one of two things are going to happen. Number one, when you die, nothing happens. And if that's the case, you're not in a grave, awake for all eternity, toiling. You don't know what's going on. Think of it as non-REM sleep. Okay, there's a big part of the night where you sleep where you're just not conscious. Think of it as being under anesthesia. Okay, you're just not conscious, and then boom, you come back.
Yeah.
So either that happens or it doesn't. But either way, there's nothing bad happening about it.
So reincarnation or regeneration, then, do you think that that's possible?
In a way, yeah. I think souls come here to learn lessons. Absolutely. Because as far as I know, in the universe, we're the only free will area. That's why we're so special. Not because we don't know if there's any other civilizations out there, because there are, but we're free will. That's why everyone's always trying to fuck with us.
I'm glad you said both statements, that we are so special, being in a quadrant of the multiverse that we're in, and that there's the powers that shouldn't be, whoever they may be, are continuously fucking with us, trying to take us off that path.
They are. And the longer religion is out there and people believe the holy books word for word, the longer we'll get away from reaching Christ consciousness. And that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to pull people away from religion, because it's astrology. It's so clearly, blatantly astrology. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm. And listen, that Micah, that is the wonderful thing of living on this plane. The diversity and the different concepts, cultures, religions, ideas that people have. It makes the world a very interesting place, but also makes the world, in some parts of the world, a very wicked place. I would say. Let's just use
Yeah,
that
well, that's
verbiage.
because we have free will. That's why it's up to, people can use it for the good or people can use it for bad.
Exactly.
That's a classic Christian argument, by the way, to make, is if God is real, why are there people suffering in the world? And the answer is free will. It's because somebody doesn't want them to have certain things. It's why we have iPhones, and it's why they're mining the cobalt for the lithium cars for Elon Musk. That's why. It's because people take advantage of other people.
Capitalism.
But we can absolutely rise from this, but we have to get rid of the religious texts. We just have to, because everybody just cares about their religious freedom, not realizing what they're reading. Nobody's ever looked into it. Nobody looks into it. Nobody looks into their books to know what they're talking about. It's just understanding the luminaries, the path that they take, what they do, what's next, what's across. That's all it's hidden in there.
The Gilgamesh epic and the Vedic text. Have you gone through that to see if there's again astrology? Or
I have not, actually. One of my podcasts that I have to do, I have to go through the Enuma Elish, because I want to see if I have any in there.
But based upon our dialogue and my rudimentary research, I think you'll find stuff in there, most definitely. 100%.
I mean, I know how to read this, and I know what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So as we wind down, how would you, without giving too much away, how would you approach? Are you literally reading the text and finding it, or are you doing word searches to try and speed the process up?
No, you just read the Bible. You just read the Bible, and it's like, there's a saying that says astrology is a language. It's not exactly a science. It's a language, and if you can read it, then the stars talk to you, and that's what it basically is. I gave you guys the primer today. I told you what the 12 signs of the zodiac are, what they mention.
Mm-hmm.
I told you what to look for. When they're talking about a fish god, they're talking about worshiping Pisces. The Christians were the people of Pisces. That's why you have the Jesus fish. which is the center of the Vesica Pisces.
Yes.
Okay. The denominator of the Vesica Pisces is 153, the same number of fish that Jesus' disciples caught when Jesus told them to throw the net to the other side. He threw the net to the other side. They reeled in 153 fish. You see how it's like a deep metaphor? You see how smart these ancients were?
Mm.
They would be blown away if they knew people were taking this shit literally. They'd be blown away.
Look at the structural feats that, as you say, the ancients have created, the cultures and stuff, and look how far allegedly we've advanced technologically, and how much we've devoluted in regards to being, Homo sapiens sapiens.
Well, it's called chronological ethnocentrism. That's the term for it. And what it basically says is that the further along you are in society, like the most current time, like now, is a better, and we're smarter and we're better off than people 2,000 years ago, even 20 years. It just says just because we're the furthest along in time, we're the smartest. And that's just not true.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. We're less free and less smart than we were 1,000 years ago, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it was Constantine in the year 325 AD. He unified Christianity, but he made it a literal religion. Before then, Christians were known as Helionostics. And Helionostics is literally two words. It's helionosis. They were sun worshippers.
Yeah.
Knowing the sun. They were sun worshippers. And Constantine had a nephew named Julian the Apostate, and his writings are still available today. You can Google it. You can go on Amazon and get Julian the Apostate's writing. He tried to bring everyone back to sun worship, and he ended up getting an arrow in his back for his troubles.
Yes. It's as you say, there's so much hidden tech. Well, there's so much text out there, but it's not necessarily in the wide main popularized sort of reach. It's available, as you say. You can do a very rudimentary search. You can even look at the have you read the Book of Adam and Eve, the two different versions?
No.
I will send you a link. I think you should most definitely have
appreciate that.
Look into those. It's there.
But what I've been talking about today, everything that I've been talking about today, is in my book series and way more. My book series, what I did was I wrote a set of 6 thrillers. I have a 6-book deal with a publisher. And I have a publicist right now who's trying to push this. We're working on getting some movie producers and TV show producers to sign on to this project. That's fresh. That's pretty new. That's only a month old that we're starting to do that. But we've got some that are interested in reading at least. So that's a good start. But I've written 6 thrillers where the characters discover all this information I'm telling you, and I just go into it. And the reason I did it that way is because, like in 1984, when you write in fiction, you can get away with telling more because people just assume the world. When you're reading a fiction book, you buy into the reality.
You certainly do. You hit the nail on the head, Micah.
You buy into the reality of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an easier way for people to be educated without you writing a nonfiction book and beating them over the head with a hammer.
Yeah. That is an excellent way to put it across, because as you say, if it's not, I'm going to get totally immersed in this book. This is, this is really out there, but I'm loving it. I like what these characters doing, etc. If it was presented as a non-fictional book, they wouldn't even buy it. Yep. This is attacking what I believe in.
I'm not gonna toot my horn, but I write awesome stories. I write pretty good stories. I'm not gonna lie. These stories are terrific. You could find me on Twitter or Facebook at Micah Dank and friend me, follow me. Every single person that friends me or follows me, I have a short conversation with. Every single. And it's in like the hundreds and hundreds now, but like I continue to talk to every single person. And you can get signed autographed copies of the books through me if you reach out to me directly, if you'd rather not give the money to Jeff Bezos. But I don't care either way. But a lot of people want to do that. And I've sold a couple hundred copies of signed books too. It's a 6-book series. The first 3 are already out. Book 4 comes out March 15th. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, you're following the script very well, sir. I was just going to ask you to throw all that out. I will make sure that the links will be below in the description. Trustfully, everybody has enjoyed the conversation and the presentation. Make sure you go over. If you want further information, hit Micah up on Facebook, as he's alluded to. He's very approachable. He will converse. I would suggest also, if you want to get the material, go direct. I always say this with all the authors that go directly to them and get that autograph, because it's priceless. It's going directly to the source, and also, that would be worth some money sometime. A handwritten.
Well, we're getting this made on TV. I'm not stopping till it's done. Maybe a mini series. I'm kind of leaning towards that.
Micah, I think that's the best bet. I don't think you should think of film currently. Get it onto a mini series first, because that's where it's thinking, at. Yeah. Netflix, Amazon Prime, whatever it is, just get it out. 6-parter, 10-parter, however they can formulate it, and get them interested. Get them interested to the point where it's like, the big players say, you know what, we can see this. Let's adapt this into a film.
Yep.
We could be
get these out before they know what they put out.
Well, it's all part of the grand plan, isn't it? It's all part of the grand plan.
It is. Listen, this is my purpose. This is what I'm doing. This is my purpose. So I'm doing 30 podcasts in March, and I'm doing like 15 in April. I've got 2 conferences too. So it's starting to really build up.
Perfect. That's a major increase. Micah, it's been another enlightening conversation. As I
think
say,
so, yeah.
Definitely. I think we've given them a lot of information, some food for thought, most importantly. Like, comment, subscribe, most definitely share.